He's got finger sprain and a lower leg contusion. They will be reevaluated in 1 week.
How do you kind of, the way that he started, obviously, so how central is the team? LeBron's already out. I know it's next man up and everything like that, but what's the biggest challenge and how do you kind of try to fill that?
Well, we have to, I think, 2 things. Just continue to build as a team on how we defended for the last 2.5 quarters against Minnesota. A lot of clips, felt it in game. That was our, that mirrored our defense last season. We thought the 2 days of practice in between games was great cleanup, reinforcement for a lot of the things we want to do, and want to see us build on that. If we do that and play hard, we'll have a chance to beat anybody regardless of who's in the lineup for us. And if we have everybody in the lineup, we still have to do those 2 things to have a chance to win. That doesn't change. Offensively, you're obviously losing a guy who creates an advantage on every possession on the offensive end. And I think that's the toughest part. And so, we have to be cognizant of personnel and we have to do everything with pace tonight. Half court, early offense, transition, it's got to be with a lot of pace and create an advantage that way.
And then have you been encouraged just by the way that Austin lineups without Luka have gone so far and the shots that he'll be able to create? Obviously, he can't be out there the whole time, but what have you seen from him as he's kind of taken a step maybe from last season?
He's been awesome and feel really comfortable with him as a primary guy. I think he's doing a great job of creating thrust and touching the paint. I talked about it after the game the other night, but 11 assists, 1 turnover against a really physical, big, long, athletic team was very impressive. So I think he's doing a good job of balancing that stuff, and I think with the addition of Smart, I think now we can always have 2 ball handlers out there basically, even without Luka.
JJ, it seemed like the finger for Luka happened pretty early on in the game against Minnesota, but when did the leg injury happen, or do you have an idea when that happened?
Later in the game. We're still reviewing to figure out when it happened.
And I know it was after the Golden State, the season opener. You mentioned that you don't look for guys to do something outside their roles when other guys are out. But now with not just LeBron being out, now it's Luka. Does that change in terms of the role orientation or anything from that front?
No, it doesn't. We're going to need offense from other guys. Everything's got to be done in the framework of what we're trying to do, and I think we saw in the preseason Gabe at times give us a big offensive lift. Rui can do that. Da can do that. Smart can do that. Jake, DK, all these guys, they can do it. It's just got to be done in a different way. You're not going to just put the ball in a guy's hands like you would with Luka and expect us to create a good shot that way. It's got to be done with our pace and our screening and our organized offense and our actions.
JJ, at the end of last season when you kind of challenged your group to get into championship shape, I think, for Luka it was easy to tell in the ways that, he needed to get better with conditioning, different things like that. As far as Austin and his quote-unquote championship shape, how much of that was endurance when it came to nights like tonight? There were a couple games last year, right, where he was able to carry you guys for 3 quarters, and then in the 4th, kind of wore down a little bit. Did he need to improve in that, and have you seen improvement with him so far this year?
I would say every guy, not just Luka, not just AR, every guy needed to be in better shape, and some of that was circumstantial of what our March looked like, and Rui coming off an injury, LeBron coming off an injury, unfortunately had to sit guys certain games for previous injuries, just because of the nature of how many games that we played that month. So certain guys medically couldn't play on back-to-backs. So I feel like we just kind of lost our way going into the playoffs, and then how I've talked about it a number of times, how I handled as a coach that week in between games, would have done completely differently. We were just too sensitive about, not getting hurt for that week and weren't prepared physically to play that series. So it was everybody. And I would say AR has done a fantastic job this summer of trimming down, still getting stronger, and his commitment level in September and in preseason to his conditioning. There was one of the games, I think it was the Golden State game in Golden State. The workout he did that morning was harder than the game would have been, and that says a lot about his level of commitment.
Is that, what is the level of like fitness? Does it play like a player, if you're gonna be like the guy and you have to compete on both ends of the, like how, what is the level that that guy has to get to be able to do that consistently?
I think you always have to have a North Star. Probably a guy like Steph, would be the North Star on that for a guard, so someone that size.
Following up on Austin, you were mentioning the assists and the one turnover when he's facilitating and moving the ball the way he is and playmaking the way he has been in these first two games. Not only scoring, but with the assists, what does that do for the offense in this team?
Yeah, again, the ability to get into the paint and, particularly against teams that paint swap, that will put 3-4 guys in the paint when there's penetration or when there's a roll man, and then being able to just be unselfish and make reads off of that. Doc Rivers used to say, if you guys went out and played pickup, he's like, I can probably guess the shot distribution. Blake and CP are going to shoot the most. Then JJ and Jamal will shoot the next most, and then you go down the line and really, like, for the star players, they all understand this. They have to understand, like, the ball's always going to find them. Like, they're going to have the ball, they're going to get their shots. So the willingness to get off the ball and make the right decision is huge, and Austin's been great so far.
JJ, saw where analytics showed that there were 7 teams that consistently picked up full court last year, and it's a little bit of a trend now across the league, kind of OKC, Indiana, leading the way. Where do you guys fall on the spectrum of that? Because it can't always be a one-size-fits-all things, and everyone's got different personnel.
Yeah, it's personnel based. What we've told, really, we have 3 guys on our team that can pick up full court, that are our rotation players. That's Gabe, Vando, and Marcus. And after dead balls, after free throws, we've given them the liberty to do that on their primary matchup. But historically, our transition defense has not been tier 1, so we need to get back after makes. We need to get back after misses, and we rely on our compact shell. That's just the reality of our personnel. So we have a 4-point line pickup in general, and we want to be able to set our defense. And that's just the philosophy that I think works best for this basketball team. It worked best for last year's basketball team. And certainly in the future, if the personnel changes, you can ask guys to pick up full court, and that can be part of your DNA.
JJ, just to follow up real quick on Luka. So he suffered the finger sprain at some point in the game. He still scores 49 points. Did you guys have any idea on Friday that, like, obviously you knew about the finger? Was the leg presented as an issue at all on Friday, or was that something that kind of?
Yeah, just kind of something that happened. I wasn't even aware of it after the game. Became aware of it obviously yesterday, and overnight, whatever sort of he felt from that hit, it just materialized. So obviously want to be safe here.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah, thanks.